Hey YouTube, this is the Art of Prepping. It's been rain today, and so I'm just walking outside here, and it's just sun's coming up, and the rain's just kind of dripping off the leaves here. So if you hear rain in the background, it's not actually raining, it's just the leaves are so soaked, and the trees are so loaded with rain droplets, it's just kind of dripping and drying. So this video is going to be also in low resolution, so I have quicker uplink time, upload time. So just ignore that. There's nothing visually that you're going to be seeing. There's nothing to see really in this video. I'm just kind of pointing this out in the woods so that I can have something that you can look at if you want to. But you may want to do other things while you listen to this video. The video at hand today is going to be talking about stress and anxiety and panic attacks. Especially those attacks that happen in high stress environments or under high stress situations. Now, this is not a fun topic to talk about, and there's definitely a lot of people who deal with anxiety. Some people deal with panic attacks, and they will probably tell you that it's living hell. But there definitely is a way around it and a way to deal with it. I have extensive knowledge in this subject. I'm not going to tell you why I have extensive knowledge. But let's just say, though, that over the decades, I've had the opportunity to study this matter in quite good detail. And I've come to the conclusion, quite a few conclusions. So let's just break it down. What is anxiety? It's a stress response. There's no doubt about it. And so when your body gets to a critical point that it feels threatened or overwhelmed, or if it feels like it's out of control or lacking control, your body has different mechanisms to try to alert you that something is not the way that you may desire or even need to function fully. So that's one aspect of it. Now, I kind of like to delve a little bit deeper, though, deeper into the panic attack thing. There's a lot of misconceptions about what a panic attack is. This is going to be framed in the sense, though, for preppers. This is also for general knowledge for other people too, not just for preppers. But it is very helpful to know when you're in high stress situations how to counter this if this happens to you, or if you currently do deal with panic attacks, how to mitigate it, because it will be debilitating, and it can literally cause you to not survive as long, unfortunately. And a lot of it's psychological, so panic attacks are a more extreme stress reaction. At least it's a perceived stress reaction that is causing physiological responses, and so your body is taking signals from the environment, the stimuli, and misinterpreting and making it construed as a threat. And your body is thinking that it's a threat, and it's activating its fight or flight response. Normally there's a dump of adrenaline or other different types of stress hormones that get dumped. And what happens is it stops digestion for the most part, and it inhibits the immune system a little bit too, if not fully, depending on what a large amount of dump that you have of adrenaline. Now, it can get really technical, but let's just keep it down to the bare facts, because this video can't go on for hours. The thing about this is that it's a perceived threat. It's not a real threat. And now, in a real grid down, or maybe there's a home invasion, that's a real threat. So it's probably totally normal to be anxious or have stress that way. I'm talking about when there really isn't a threat. Now, you may be under stress because there could be a survival situation going on, so that's somewhat understandable. But while you're prepping, before all this happens, in particular, if you're having these stress responses and there's not any real reason to have it, then you're having an overreaction. And there's typically several things that can cause that. There could be a traumatic event that have triggered this. So you have unresolved emotional states in the mind that haven't been able to process, so they reoccur over and over. And also there's a possibility that you've kind of trained your body to think that, okay, when certain things happen, they're always a threat. And so your body gets a little overly excited. And so the thing about the panic attacks is it won't kill you. It can't really hurt you. It can wear you out, and it definitely makes your heart rate go up and your blood pressure go up a little bit, if not a lot. But it's not like it's a deadly thing. It's more like comparable to like going out for a jog or a run. It's like exercising pretty. I guess you would say strenuously, just for a short amount of time. They typically only last for a few minutes. Some people have them, a series of them off and on. Only in extreme cases you have them longer than that. But for the average person, these things can happen quickly because they're not aware of the triggers, and they can happen kind of randomly. And so what you have to think about is how are you going to mitigate this, because you do have control over this. There was a reason why before these things happened that you had control. You've just lost control, and you just got to get that control back. So this is a doable thing. Now, what the whole thing about understanding what you can do revolves around two main options. The first one is going to be the most natural that you do, just because you don't really think the other one's really a plausible way to kind of solve this problem. And so the first way you're going to deal with it is with anger. Anger will override a panic attack almost always, in most cases. I'd say over 90% of the time, with no problem, it'll override it. But it's definitely not good for you. You'll continue to increase your blood pressure, and it's just not good to have that kind of stress. So anger is not really the cure long term at all. This is another way you can deal with it. Is kind of along the way of going with the flow. So I guess this is part two, the other part. And it's like, and this is going to sound very counterintuitive, but to go for a jog or to be a little active, go for a walk, burn off that adrenaline, burn it off. And so you'll start to feel a lot better quicker. And maybe even in conjunction with it, this is kind of the key here. But to surrender to it. If you actually feel like you're going to die, and obviously people feel like they're actually dying or actually having a real heart attack, with no joke. I mean, the experience is very convincing that there's a major medical issue going on. That's why so many people go to the emergency room. But the thing is that if you surrender to it, and you know that you're in good health, I mean, you know that this is not a heart attack kind of thing. Of course, you have to be careful. I mean, it could be a real heart attack, but most likely, if you have a history of this, you're pretty much going to be, a high correlation that this obviously is just a panic attack. So you surrender to it, and it's counterintuitive because you'd want to fight this. You want to kind of resist these feelings of dread and terror and suffering and maybe impending death. So it doesn't make a lot of sense, people say. But when you try it and you actually surrender to that, you don't feed it anymore, and those emotions dissipate, sometimes within seconds. This is the best way to do it. If you have a panic attack while you're driving, you completely surrender. Now, you don't literally believe that you're going to like you're surrendering, like you give up and you just feel like, okay, I'm going to just die. But it's almost like that. It's very close. Like you just kind of say to yourself, I really don't care if I pass out or if I just have a heart attack. And you stop feeding into the fear, literally in a matter of seconds for most people, it will start to dissipate like you wouldn't believe, because you've totally stopped feeding the panic. And it takes a few tries to really get into it, because most people are a bit leery of that kind of surrender, because it requires a little faith in yourself, and it's a little bit spooky at first because you're like, but I don't want to surrender my perceived control over this, even though you're not controlling it. You actually control it by surrendering. So basically, you fake out your body by saying, I don't care if I die right now, so what? And you fake your body out. It sounds a little odd and a little bit like, what? But those who deal with this, they know what I'm talking about. So basically, you just surrender. And it's a lot easier, of course, when you're not driving, but you can do like motions with your feet, tap your feet on the floorboard while you're driving, different motions and rhythms while you surrender to burn off some of that adrenaline, while you just basically allow the de-escalation naturally in your body to occur with the surrender. So that's just it's a tip there. And this can also be done If you're in a high stress environment, like if you're with your prepper group and you were called together because there was a real emergency, a disaster, maybe a very bad tornado ripped through half of your community, doesn't have any housing, and so you're forced to live with maybe someone in your prepper group for a week or so, or whatever it is. Maybe you're being brought to the Red Cross and you feel like you're under an extreme amount of anxiety, and maybe you're having a panic attack or you feel one coming on. It's a very bad feeling, I can tell you. From what I've understood, it's a lot of pressure you feel on your body and your chest, and no wonder people think it's like a heart attack. But what it is, though, it's just that sense of dread, and we have to be mindful, though, that if you feed into that, it will continue. And so it's kind of a self-reinforcing monster, if you will, of terror. So panic attacks and anxiety, they're real things. These things do exist. People do suffer, and but they don't realize that the medicines that they're supposedly given, a lot of times they're psychotropics. They're supposed to be antidepressants, or they're given different things like Xanax or whatever thing that are actually downers. They don't have anything to do with preventing them in the future per se, unless you're trying to train your body not to have the same response. But it's by themselves they don't do crap, and so you're just putting more chemicals in your body and poison yourself, while the real answer lies in how you react to it. So they don't tell you that kind of stuff, though, when you're in the ER, from what I understand. So just educate yourself. This is a good tool. Like this channel, we'll talk about this off and on, different things that pertain to health. We actually have a day of the week that is health oriented, so just be mindful of that. Every Saturday we talk about health. This is just a bonus video right here, but overall, I think that you can control these things, no doubt about it. I've seen it firsthand. And so if you have any questions at all, feel free to comment or message me or whatever, and we can continue this conversation another time. But panic attacks, though, don't have to rule your life. You don't have to take medicines forever. You just simply have to get control back over your life. Sometimes you do have to make life changes too, not just surrender to it. You may have to, maybe move on from a relationship, or you have to admit that job is not working for you. Maybe where you live is just not it's not complementing your lifestyle or your personality. And there's a lot of things in life that have to sync up. And so don't be afraid to look at your life and examine your life, and figure out what your needs are, because especially if you're a prepared-minded person, and especially if you're watching my videos, you probably are. Hopefully you would know who you are by now. A lot of people don't, and when you don't admit and just kind of realize that, okay, these are some things that I really like, and these things I don't like. These things I don't really like doing because I feel like they're uncomfortable and stressful, and these things make me happy. When you kind of just act like, oh, I should be able to do anything. Well, no one can just do anything. Everybody has their ups and downs. Everybody has their questionable nature and their comfort zones. It's not to say you shouldn't sometimes push your comfort zones, but there's a lot of times that it kind of just is what it is. But you do have control, and you don't have to suffer. So this is just to kind of focus on panic attacks and anxiety. And this is not to also say that other techniques aren't valid. Definitely, I would say that. Sorry about that. I had to move because I got rained on. This big old cloud came by and then it stopped. Very odd. But what I was just saying, that there are other techniques with panic attacks that are very helpful. First one is breathing. Slowing yourself way down, deep breathing, and closing your mind, and just and trying to not to focus on the terror that you're going through. This is a big one. It's really hard to panic when you're having a lot of oxygen in your body. One of the main reasons people starting to panic because they get real tense. They get a lot of body tension, and what happens? It starts to cut off and close off some of the diaphragm. And so when you're breathing, you're not even breathing full breaths. You're just doing these little shallow breaths, and that contributes to part of the panic attack. So what you got to do is you got to kind of sit back in your chair or stand up straight, pull your shoulders all the way back and take deep breaths. Don't be doing these little huff and puffs and these little shallow breathing. You got to stop doing that. So that in conjunction though with basically you can meditate, you can distract yourself. Sometimes music helps other people, it makes it worse. I know for most people though, I think a quiet room, a dark room is going to be best. That's what I've heard the most, of the quiet dark room that you can be left alone. Sometimes even a cool room is better, because a lot of people get very hot. There's a lot of different symptoms with panic attacks. It's not just shakiness or a rapid heartbeat or the impending fear of death or doom, but it's also about having a heat and cold waves. And most of the time it's heat waves, and just maybe having some bowel problems. Definitely upset stomachs, and maybe even feel like that you're going to lose control of your bowels. But most of the time, though, it's just a lot of impending doom. So this video is getting long. I'm going to jump off here, but yeah, feel free to message me if you want me to continue to talk about this subject, or if you have any questions, just in the comment section below, because there's a lot of more information about this. It's really hard to do this in one video. And I'd be happy to continue this and make a whole series if you like over time, and just kind of help me outline what you want to know about, because there's a lot of aspects to this that are a little bit hard to kind of pull out of the woodwork, if you will, to enhance it, unless have a direction to go in. So you guys take care, and I'll catch you real soon.